The calculators are out, furiously crunching numbers. But the permutations could be endless with the toss-up that is Daytona set to close us out. 3 drivers have a mathematical shot, but Grotto is sitting in the catbird seat. Will he clinch? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch the PCA Sim Racing Series 9 Club Class live here on Podium Esports. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is DJ Clark. Cameron Auburnon is on social media, and Ryan Bauer is producing while using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. However, before we get to the racing, we're proud to announce that Pirelli is back as the PCA Sim Racing title sponsor for Series 9. Pirelli was founded in Milan in 1872 and today stands as a global brand known for its cutting-edge technology, high-end production, excellence, and passion for innovation that draws heavily on its Italian roots. Pirelli is among the world's major producers of tires and is an OEM supplier to Porsche. Find out more about Pirelli at Pirelli.com. Series 9 is also sponsored by Six Sigma Sim Racing, which was founded in 2021 by automotive engineers as a new sim racing equipment provider. After 1 year, Six Sigma now has divisions in the USA, Japan, Australia, and Europe, providing the best valued sim racing cockpits and peripherals. Six Sigma offers 10% off to any PCA member from the website, and the coupon code is PCA Sim. For more information about Six Sigma Sim Racing, please visit their website at sixsigmasimracing.com. That's the number 6sigmasimracing.com. Well, DJ, it's a bit of the reverse of what we typically see. Instead of starting the season at Daytona, we're going to end it here.
Yes, we are, Joe, and that means we are in for an absolutely cracker of a finale here. It is going to be all about the draft here today, and I think this is going to be one that we are not going to know the conclusion of. We are not going to know who's going to be able to take that top step until the very, very final couple of corners.
Absolutely. So many drivers could manage to stay in the hunt until the very end just because of the unique banking of this course. Enrico Gregorato, one of the 3 that's going to be trying for the championship here. Grotto is the one leading the points coming in, but Gregorato is chasing and has moved into second in the last round. So he is on an upward swing, but he's going to need luck on his side a little bit as we see him finish up the lap here. The other cool thing, though, that we do have, they've decided to race in the sunset, which is going to take us with the hour race time here, DJ, into the dark.
Yeah, it certainly should, and that's going to make for things being a little bit interesting. Now, Daytona is not like a lot of the courses that we run on when you run into the dark. Is the majority, if not the complete layout here, is going to be lit by the spotlights, so you're going to be able to not really have to adjust your braking markers all that much, but it is going to be just a little bit of a sensory change for these drivers, and that'll be something that they'll have to keep in mind.
Now, if you're wondering how to keep in mind the championship, here's where the points sit right now. I already told you that Grotto is leading, but the distance essentially means first or second will pretty much clinch it for Logan. As long as he qualifies in the top 18, and he's third right now, then those are the only 2 positions that will lead that can clinch the championship for him. Below that, it'll take some really extenuating circumstances. We'll see what happens. Gregorato, the one trying to catch up. Thomas Briggs essentially needs a pole and a win, so he might be out of this by the time we get down to the qualifying being over. Facciolo's being hot on his heels with Stephen Kemp, unfortunately not here today, even though he sits within the top 5. And then from below there, look at Faulkner, Sinclair, Leung, and Lewis. They're all pretty tight together there for that 7th position. So there could be some fierce battles in the mid-pack here today. Now, before we get to the racing, a reminder about the PCA that their social media offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. To subscribe, key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. All right, then. Chris Cook right now on top of Kessel, and Grotto only in 3rd. But again, with him not really needing to do much in the way of things, as long as he's above 18th, I think basically if he gets 2nd, he still clinches here. Yeah, 18th or higher, 2nd clinches. below that, he can have something else happen. But a win, regardless what happens in qualifying, he will take the victory here today, as it looks like the checkered flag is out. So the last of the drivers on hot laps going to try and complete that.
Yeah, and that's bad news here for Thomas Briggs, because he does not have a buddy up in front of him. And I guarantee you that these really fast times that we are seeing set here, Joe, are done with the help of the draft. Briggs not looking like he's setting fast sector times here at this point now that he's left on his lonesome.
So Briggs down to the line here as he comes onto the main straight up to the tri-oval to cross the line at 44.2. Let's see if this will take him any higher. He does improve a 43.9, and it looks like that's good enough for 5th place.
Well, I'm very surprised by that, Joe. Not exactly what I was expecting there. We've got a couple other drivers waiting to finish up, though. Robbie Prescott is one of them as he now comes down into Le Mans. That is going to be Mike Sachs up ahead of him, and so he'll get a nice help of the draft if he didn't spin it out there like that. And now it's going to be Sachs working his way around, who I believe will be the last driver to complete their flying lap.
Yep, you're right. That is it for our starting grid. And it's a nice, healthy 37 cars here today. So Chris Cook is on the pole, and it's Terrence Tong starting to his outside. Scott Kessel will be 3rd, and our championship hopeful Logan Grotto starts in 4th. Thomas Briggs is P5 as Nick Facciolo starts 6th. Greg Arado a few positions behind, but as we said, the draft can make things a little topsy-turvy. Starting from 7th is not a death knell. Jared Roadheaver starts 8th as Joe Sinclair's 9th, and Ben Leung rounds out your top 10. We'll scroll through the rest of the fields. It's back to rolling starts, DJ, after we had those standing starts out at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, I think the driver's going to be very, very happy to see rolling starts come back in, especially considering the fact if we had a standing start here, Joe, you'd be starting up on the banking and you'd get a little bit of gravity effects pulling you down into the apron.
Yeah, exactly. So not exactly desirable out here. The drivers probably glad that they opted for that in this situation. Just about have them all gridded up. So they'll just take off around the through the bus stop, really, and then around the tri-oval, or around the turns 3 and 4 from the NASCAR section into the tri-oval, and they'll be unleashed to go racing for 60 minutes for the last time in Series 9, and we will crown another champion here today. Logan Grotto has been looking pretty good this season, having taken very consistent finishes along with some great wins in there. And really his worst was at Indianapolis back in round 4. Other than that, he's just been logging off good finish after good finish.
Yeah, he certainly has. But as we've talked about a little bit here today, sometimes at Daytona, it doesn't matter how well you drive. If you've got a driver behind you that's able to keep up that pace, that's just going to put them into a great position come the checkered flag to be able to make that move coming down through NASCAR 3 and 4. And sometimes it's just out of your control, Joe.
Yeah, so just going to have to keep your wits about you and hopefully at the end be in a position to try and go for that last lap snipe for the victory if it requires that, as Tong and Cook take off on that front row and lead us through the bus stop chicane. You can see in the past couple years, actually, I should say at this point, they've added the tire barriers there in the chicane. So it's a little harder to try and cut through there than what it used to be, in which drivers could often find themselves just having to blow the chicane and then take a massive slowdown penalty. Now they'll probably have given up most of that time at the time they're able to weave through those two little chicanes. And as they approach, that pace car will duck off as soon as they go by the last little bit of the pit entry, and it'll be up to Chris Cook to control the start from there, which will take us down into turn 1. Kind of known for a few issues sometimes, but these guys showed us just how good they are through the first couple corners at Red Bull Ring. So hopefully, crossing fingers, that they also are going to show well here today. As there goes the pace car. Cook has control of the field. Green flag is out, and as he's on the loud pedal, few of them scattering out in the background. In fact, almost looking like 4 wide in some cases as they start to come down into the first corner. Now this is very wide on entry, and then it's going to narrow up significantly on the exit. Will everybody manage to get out the other side? So far, so good. I think we have made it through clean.
I think we have as well, but the big loser there from the first couple of corners, Joe, Terrence Tong, who is down a spot to Scott Kessel. Kessel able to make the move up the inside. Now Kessel's looking aggressive, trying to make a move on your leader, as we've also got a little bit of a battle here with Grotto and Briggs trying to force their way up ahead.
Yeah, and Grotto doesn't really need to take a whole lot of chances here, just needs to bring it home, stay with those leaders. As he continues in 4th place, Briggs a little bit under threat from Facciolo, but he gets a good run there. Coming off of turn 6, trying to look up the inside, off of turn 5 into turn 6. And Briggs not able to take it. In fact, he has a big slide there. And I wonder if Facciolo is going to have a better bit of momentum now on NASCAR 1 and 2.
He very well might, and he's definitely going to have a good heaping of the draft here. And good that you mentioned they're coming through 6 and 7, Joe. That's a very tricky section of the track. Absolutely no cambering there before you fly your way back up onto the banking. It's very, very slippery, easy to spin the tires, easy to get things wrong.
A little bit of a look from Nick into the bus stop chicane, but he doesn't go for it. In fact, he looks a little slow off of there, and now it seems like Greg Arato's starting to encroach upon him, and he definitely has a little bit of better momentum. It takes a whiff of the draft, but it's the longer way around here up on the high side. Is that enough to hurt his speed?
I think it might be, Joe. Normally what we see is, we've got 3 wide now coming down into the corner. My goodness.
Yeah, this is Logan Grotto, who's going to try to go for the 3rd position, and he's going to break deep down into the first corner. Briggs around the outside, tries to shut the door, and he does on Terrence Tong. Not been the greatest of starts as he falls down to 5th here after beginning on the front row.
Yeah, he's really, really struggling here at this point, but now a continued fight between Briggs and Grotto. I think a little bit of elbows out there. I don't think there was actually contact, but those two certainly getting as close could be.
Yeah, they may have lightly brushed one another from what I could see on my angle, but I think they got away with it. Terrence Tong now under threat back there as Facciolo gives another go at it down into turn 5. But up at the front of them, it is still Cook leading with Kessel behind him with a bit of a breakaway, and looks like Facciolo isn't able to do it into 6 either, but he's definitely got Tong trying to defend here and there.
Yeah, and if Terrence is looking in his rear view mirror there, that's a good thing for Nick. It's going to slow Terrence's reaction times down just a little bit, and look at this run. Here's the draft coming into play. Getting a move down into the mall bus stop is very, very difficult, but it's possible. Tong takes a defensive line, though. I think that's going to scupper any chance that Nick Facciolo has to move his way ahead.
And he looks very calm and collected right now, despite the pressure that he's been under since the start of the race. So he'll hold on to that for the time being. Got to wonder if Grotto is going to be able to try and catch back up to the leaders now that he was able to get around those guys for that 3rd position. Or at least briefly, Briggs is now taking it back. And they're coming across the line once again. There's Kessel just looking a little bit high as Cook defends briefly and then takes it back to the racing line. Very different lines through turn 1 between the pair of them.
Well, you can take multiple lines there into turn 1, Joe. It's one of the great things about this circuit is the multitude of lines that you can take. But I like what I'm seeing here out of Scott Kessel. Number 1, he's able to hold back in 2nd place position here, probably save a little bit of fuel, which is something we'll talk about over the course of the race. And he's also just kind of poking this way, poking that way, seeing if he can maybe elicit an error out of Chris Cook, and maybe that'll be enough to be able to move him up ahead.
Continues to get him to cover the inside of multiple corners here as Cook now exits off of the Western Horseshoe and back into turn 6. And this is where he really needs to get the throttle down, try not to spin the tires up like we saw a little earlier with, I think it was Facciolo that had that happen. Kessel still well within range, but despite the big hole in the air, what's happened to Tong? More problems here as he looked slow coming out of the kink.
I think he just got it wrong there. Let's take a look here at Terrence. He comes out of the International Horseshoe. Everything looks okay right now. Now he's going to dive his way into the kink. Oh, he just caught a little bit of the curb and spun himself out.
Tried to stay out of the way. Thankfully, great job by everybody to just hold out of him there. And has to wait a long time for some sort of opening in the traffic, as unfortunately, with things being still early in this race, they're all crunched together, and he has fallen well down the order. Meanwhile, in front of him, we got a battle here up onto the banking between Gonzalez and Steinbrink. Oh, and Roadheaver's off.
Yeah, Roadheaver there. That's on the exit of the Le Mans chicane, and that's something I think we're going to see quite a few times over the course of the night. Drivers just getting things a little bit wrong there. Let's take a look at the replay.
This is a frequent occurrence through Le Mans. And, rear starts to come around. Did he hit it? Oh, yeah, he got it pretty hard and on the corner of the car. Hopefully the suspension is not damaged, but they do have a spare car waiting for them. Oh, that's not a good sign. He's on the banking, or off the banking, rather. I suspect that is a confirmation that he has some sort of damage that's going to send him into pit lane.
Yeah, that's normally a pretty strong indication there for those drivers.
So back up to Scott Kessel in P2 once again. No, up to the lead, rather. He passed Chris Cook while we weren't looking. So that must have been a slipstream pass. And here it looks like we got the replay. And indeed, coming out of NASCAR 3 and 4, he's got the toe. And even though Cook stays down to the inside, it was enough momentum. Let's see, does he have to finish under braking here into turn 1? Looks like he does. So he hits that marker from way out to the outside, although admittedly Cook looked very shallow.
Yeah, I think Cook recognized the writing on the wall there. Joe decided to back off a little bit, kind of give that position over to Scott Kessel. And now Kessel's going to try to stretch his legs up the front of the field. As we look a little bit farther back right now, Jake Faulkner and Ben Leong having a nice little battle. Here comes Jake trying to do a similar move around the outside.
Yeah, carries just enough speed, and it's the end of NASCAR 3 and 4, so he's not on the outside line as long. So they come into the tri-oval with the nose ahead, but he can't chop down quite yet. Ben Leung still has at least a bit of a claim to the corner, but no, he's going to break early. So Faulkner up to 9th.
Good move there from Faulkner. That's exactly what he wanted to do, and he's been able to keep the car underneath him coming through 1. That's the one thing that gets a little bit tricky when you make that corner sometimes, is that when you go through there, you're not used to carrying that little bit of overspeed through the run, but now he's able to get a little bit of a gap on Ben Leong, and he's going to try to focus up ahead of him here, about 1.9 seconds to try to go to Robbie Prescott.
I tell you what, the plot thickens up at the front of the field. Not only has Cook been passed, but Thomas Briggs has caught them. It's become a 3-car fight, almost a 4-car fight, because Logan Grotto is kind of reeling them in. We're on board with Thomas Briggs. Sadly, well, sort of sadly, I guess bittersweet here, showing an homage to Ken Block here, as his recent passing has definitely affected a lot of drivers who were fans.
Yeah, one of the biggest names in racing and in motorsports in general. Such a tragedy that that news coming across, obviously, that Ken had passed away not too long ago. But his is not the first of these kind of homage liveries that we've seen, and I hope we continue to see them because they always look great.
Agreed. It's a nice scheme and a nice nod. But Chris Cook, though, not worried about aesthetics as we come a little farther back into quite the melee down through the Le Mans chicane. Trip Starkey versus Brandon Harrison here.
Yeah, Starkey's going to try to do that same thing, just get a good run in the draft. Let's see if he's able to make anything work here. He's going to look around the outside. But, Joe, unlike some of the prototypes that we see run around here at Daytona, if you are in these GT3s, you necessarily can't get as much speed around the outside, so that's a hard move to make work.
Yeah, they're still side by side, but we can see on board with Kessel now, leading quite a few drivers. And I can report that Starkey did get by Harrison in the meantime. Through the kink we go. This time looks like all the drivers able to navigate that without spinning out. Kessel has that track advantage, but as we've seen, that doesn't always mean everything at this circuit.
No, it certainly doesn't. You still have to be able to maintain as much as possible through some of the twisty bits to try to keep everything up. But let's see here as they exit out of 6 and 7, this train all starting to play into each other, and they're doing here exactly what I frankly kind of expected them to be able to do, which is to build a little bit of a breakaway from Nick Facciolo, about 3 seconds. So now this is the battle that we want to keep our eyes on for the lead. Kessel, Briggs, Cook, and Grotto. It's going to be these 4 up at the top.
Also, unfortunately for fans of Mario Gonzalez, he was involved in an incident a little bit earlier and has now gotten a black flag for that one. Briggs having to overtake Cook certainly put him on the back foot a little bit. He's not nearly as close to Kessel as they were before, but you can see how close Logan is to Chris Cook. Logan right now, I believe, as it stands, should be our champion. Yeah, it's definitely going to be him. That's our champion with the way things are right now. He's going to have to go around the outside of Chris Cook. Breaks as deep as he dares. Still manages to keep a nose ahead, but it cannot shut the door quite yet. And Chris Cook is going to deny him, at least for the time being. Let's see if he goes defensive down into the International Horseshoe. No, he has to leave the door open. And they continue on side by side.
Continue on side by side here. That's going to be the 47 of Cook, just trying to carry that momentum as much as possible. It's now going to work back the other way. Let's see here if Cook is going to be able to hold this out. And no, a chop down from Logan Grotto. He'll hold on to 3rd.
Brave stuff there. Great racing from the number 6, but that still cost them so much time, having to take multiple corners side by side. Some of them very atypical to see side by side. The kink is a bit of a rarity to see drivers have to do that wheel to wheel. So he'll have to make up multiple car lengths to catch up to Briggs, who's also appearing to lose a little touch with Kessel at the very front. We now hop on board with a man that's trying to gain points on Grotto. Gregor Grotto here. Enrico, though, unfortunately still down in P6.
Yeah, and unfortunately here, he's going to have to try to bridge not only that gap up to Nick Facciolo, but that big 2.5-second gap up to Chris Cook to try to gain in on the rest of them. I just don't think it works.
He's looking a little far back. He absolutely needs to finish ahead of Grotto in this situation, since wasn't able to gain all that much on the qualifying anyways, and that wouldn't have done it even on its own as it stands. Back to Joe Sinclair just behind them in P8. He looks like, yep, that's going to be more a case of bump drafting and maybe saving a little fuel there on Robbie Prescott just in front of him.
And I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't seen more bump drafting here today, Joe. That's normally a pretty good strategy to try to get some good moves around here at Daytona.
Yeah, I would think, especially with the pit stop, a lot of drivers are going to be trying to utilize that to their advantage. As you see Dave Stewart just in front in the 914 ahead of Chad Dick. That's Joachim Baker behind them currently that we were watching when we were off board. There they are, 3 now, all vying for that 15th spot that Dave holds on to. We hop on board with the 330. Love these angles that really kind of show us what the driver can see with the 3-monitor setup.
Yeah, really and truly, it gives you an idea of just how much you see out the left and the right side of the car. We're used to seeing that angle up ahead, but that triple screen setup really gives you that full feeling of being in the car, and it allows you to look left, look right, know what's coming up behind you. And on a track like Daytona, it is very, very crucial to be able to know exactly who is to your either side when you're running in these high draft trains around the outside.
That great car that's caught up to Joachim is Brandon Harrison. So he was battling with Trip Starkey before and has decided to set his sights forward and not settle down with just that one position. Here we watch from Brandon, completely different philosophy, taking the VR headset to find his extra peripheral vision. Great run through Le Mans, though.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic there for Brandon Harrison. But I think he's going to be a little bit stubborn. He may have gotten too good of a run there, Joe, and he's got to lift off a little bit. As we said, you can't really get that run. Certainly, yeah, there you see it. Well, going to look like 3 wide, but that run just not going to play itself out, I think.
Yeah, it was Yoakum that was able to kind of pop out, but even he seems to be stalling out down to the inside. Chad Dick is the one who's slow into the corner. Whoa, close racing. No, it looks like it's too hard in for Dave Stewart. For a while, I thought he was going to take the spot, but just couldn't find the grip way out in the gray stuff.
No, just couldn't get it out there. My goodness gracious, that got a little bit hairy, but this big gaggle that we're seeing, this is exactly the kind of racing that we expect here at Daytona, but you have got to be so careful not to make contact, not to get into any trouble. You've got to get yourself to the end of the race.
It's getting frantic in this group. They're now up to 5 of them, still being led by Chad Dick there in 15th. Baker down into 16th. Harrison trying to see if he can snag another one potentially, with Dave Stewart having to give up the spot through turn 1. No dice into 6. Maybe the slipstream down the super stretch will see them change around.
Maybe it will a little bit. I think these drivers may be a little bit spaced out here at this point. And the other thing that we're going to keep in mind as we watch this kind of battle play out is the draft train that will start to exist. There we see a little bit of a move coming in down into Le Mans, but that's not going to play. And one of the things that'll happen is if you're 3rd, 4th, 5th back in line here, you're not going to be getting the full pole because the driver in front of you is also going to be getting the benefit of the draft, and that's going to kind of stall the two of you out together.
Absolutely. Dave Stewart had a poor run there through Le Mans, but the top 3 of this 5-car battle are crunching in together. And this time, will they actually go 3 wide? No. It looks like Brandon Harrison just going to ride that toe of Yoakum across the line. He's going to get one. Is he greedy enough to try and make it a twofer? He is. He's going to send it way deep around the outside, but that leaves him vulnerable. Chad Dick can't capitalize on it. He'll stay put. Brandon still at least gets 1 position out of that move.
He gets 1 position, and he now knows that he can make it work by doing that exact move. So that's going to be a good run there for him. The other thing is that drivers like Chad Dick and Yoakum Baker around him are going to know that that is where he wants to go. And so they may be a little bit hesitant to give him that line the next time through the corner. As we take a look back here up at the front of the field where things have started to fan out a little bit. Chris Cook trailing behind Logan Grotto with a bigger gap developing between Kessel and Briggs.
It definitely is. It's nearly up to 2 seconds, which is way outside of the slipstream in these cars at Daytona. So maybe it's down to a battle for the last step on the podium between these two. Facciolo and Gregorato have also dropped way off of them. In fact, Gregorato lost that 5th spot this lap after he spun up the tires coming out of the Western Horseshoe. Cook is still clinging here to the front. He started from pole, so not sure how he's going to feel finishing 3rd or 4th. That might be a bit of a disappointment. Oh, here we go. Side by side between Nick and Enrico.
Yeah, I know. I thought this was going to be coming here from Enrico Gregorato. It's a driver we know has good pace around here. He's going to try to make that stick around the outside. Looks like he's already got the move done, and now he'll be able to sweep there into that 5th place position. But all of that waiting around behind Nick Facciolo has really hurt him. They are 5 seconds back now from Chris Cook.
Well, I gotta say, I'm very happy to see our 3 drivers that can mathematically take the championship are inside the top 5 right now. It's just the sad thing is it's going to be very difficult for them to do so if Grotto stays within those top 5. Right now, the number 6 is still potentially your leader. And coming down into the International Horseshoe here, back to that battle between Stewart, Starkey, Dick, and it looks like they're now being gained upon by Ballestieri and David Fernandez as well. So sort of a rotating cast of characters here in the mid-pack.
Yeah, very much so. And I've got to give credit there to the number 20 of Trip Starkey. He was able to get that move done on Chad Dick going down into the International Horseshoe, just being later on the binders. And that takes a lot of guts to do. That track is really crowned there, Joe. So if you go to the outside too far, the track will actually break away from you. It'll be off camber, and it's very hard to carry speed through that area. But Tripp making it look easy.
Well, it's always sad when you have a driver on the last race of the season not get to see the checkered flag. Jared Rodeheaver is going to be our first DNF. Let's cross our fingers that that's the only one during this race. But I wouldn't bet on that being the case because this is still a very difficult track. We watch from Briggs' perspective, and he seems to have gained somewhat on Kessel, I think.
Yeah, he's been able to bring that gap down under 0.5 of a second here, and crucially, Logan Grotto is maintaining the gap behind these two at about 2 seconds, so they can't really dilly-dally all that much here, Kessel and Briggs. They can't spend too much time fighting because Grotto will be up behind them, and he will pounce if they go side by side for too long.
He's looking very close now. This is getting kind of threatening, and I'll have to double check some of this situation for Briggs. I'm pretty certain even if he takes the win here, I don't think he can get it anymore unless Grotto wrecks out or something like that. Because, yeah, from what my calculations were, he needs a win regardless of the qualifying situation and needs Grotto to score less than his drop week for a chance at the crown, and still has to beat Grotto on top of that. So everything's pretty stacked against the number 4.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm not entirely sure here for Briggs what his mentality coming into the race is. Some drivers really like to know all those combinations and permutations to try to make sure they know where to position themselves and if they're going to be in a good running for the championship. There are other drivers who don't want to know any of it. They just want to focus on the race and try to win it, and if they get the championship to come along with it, that's great. But the race is the only thing that matters.
Love that angle there, low to the ground, watching the sun setting behind the banking as they exit turn 4. This is Grotto in the lead of this group in the green and black. Nick Facciolo in the yellow, taking a little bit of a peek down the inside, coming into turn 1. Does manage to get Grotto to outbrake himself slightly, but he retains that 5th position. Robbie Prescott and Joe Sinclair, though, have caught enough of the draft that they, too, are now part of this group.
Yeah, and I want to give some credit here to Nick Facciolo. I kind of thought that Enrico Gregorato was going to slip off into the distance here a little bit, but he has been able to keep this gap really close behind, and that's going to be good for Facciolo when it comes to fuel saving. He's going to be able to lift and coast here plenty through this lap, and he may be able to gain an extra lap of fuel over Enrico Gregorato, and we've seen many a time, Joe, that may be the difference between 5th and 6th place come the time the checkered flag flies.
Let's stay here, but I want to give a quick nod. We've been mentioning Brandon Harrison here and there and him taking a number of positions in that mid-pack fight. He's up 22. He was the only driver that failed to set a qualifying time, and he is just slicing through the field. So keep your eyes on that number 31 on the tower. We'll see how many more he's able to get here in the last 2/3 of the race. Back to Austin Bucket, who is just trying to position himself behind Dean Chapman. In fact, he's going to look down to the inside, under braking into Lamar. That's a very difficult pass to make most times, and he doesn't. However, he does set himself up well for the exit.
Yeah, that's especially impressive considering he was offline on the entrance into the corner. As we check back in on the front of the field, the gap coming down to about 1/10 and a half before Thomas Briggs decided to lift off. Again, this is a little bit of that cat and mouse game. Oh, as we've got a car around. Oh, no, that's Brandon Harrison.
I shouldn't have said anything about him. I shouldn't have said anything. Commentator's curse strikes again, and he comes back in 31st. Oh, my goodness. He lost so many spots in that. And sadly, I believe this is all on him. There's nobody around. Yeah, car just gets loose. It snaps as he overcorrects. Thankfully, didn't hit the wall. Oh, man, that's got to be so frustrating after he did such a good job early on, though.
Well, he's still got about 36 minutes left to go to try to gain some more positions, and it is no doubt, though, very frustrating to have that happen. I've lost it coming through there as we've got Sebastiano Balestrieri coming into pit lane, and Joe, I think that's damage related.
Yeah, well, okay, this is bizarre, actually. It's almost like he decided he'd go into pit lane a little late, and when he tried to go in, he wound up sailing across the grass, lost control of the car, and slammed into the inside of the pit wall. We've got Mike Sachs as well, as we've come back live now. Oh, and a very good battle, but he's going to lose control. And actually, no, we haven't come back live. This is replay. And thankfully, in what is a very blind first corner, nobody runs into him, despite him being prone across the track.
Yeah, and we've had another one. Chris Cook losing it out of Le Mans. He is down off and into the grass, and I believe contact with one of the barriers there on the front of that 47 machine.
Oh, no. It didn't start out that great for him, but he was at least running within the top 5. Let's see. And again, oh, yeah, that curb. Oh, wow. Monster hit for that one, though.
Yeah, that's going to be a big impact there. And yeah, Joe, that is such a huge thing to keep in mind there. You see, you just get a little bit too far over to the right when you come through that last part of the Le Mans chicane. The car starts to break away just a little bit, and then you clip the last part of the chicane, the last curbing, and then it spits you out into the outside wall.
Good news is he's within the pit window, so he can take his spare car and get back out there, but he's still going to lose at least a decent chunk of time. On board with Joe Sinclair, a little bit farther back, but actually he's up with Facciolo, is he? Yeah, so he's with Prescott, so this is in that battle for what is now 4th place because of the problems that Cook experienced. Everybody gets shifted up a little bit here.
Yeah, everybody getting that nice little boost, and it looks like Sinclair's got the best run here out of anybody in this group right now. The 212 starting to get a little bit of a pull behind Robbie Prescott. I don't think it's going to be enough to be able to make the move, but if Prescott in particular is driving with that relative box on, he's going to know that that time is coming down a little bit, and he's going to be having a look in his rearview mirror, and that's exactly what you want to have happen if you're a trailing driver.
Steinbrink down in 19th, all over the back of Fernandez. This is onto the back stretch. That's also the car of Chad Dick just in front of them. So this is for 17th, essentially. Fernandez now starting to gain, but he's going to break as they approach into the Le Mans chicane. Lee Binkley and Patrick Adamczyk are not too terribly far behind. You can just get glimpses of those headlights farther in the background.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to start seeing here is, all right, we've got a little bit of a move starting to play itself out in that 09 machine. Fernandez looking to the outside, trying to carry that run. Now, I would have gone down the hill as it looks like we've got to take her down into pit lane. That's going to be Chad Dick.
Okay, well, not something that I would expect here, especially for him to go alone, because like we were talking about, the slipstream usually so powerful here. And he's going to try and go solo and will come out among slower cars, even if he does find someone to slipstream with from there. Back to Thomas Briggs. It remains within half a second, but critically for them, Logan Grotto has cut down, what was it, up to 2 seconds, I think? He's got it down to 9/10 of a second, so he must have pretty good pace on them.
Well, I think that's a combination of things there, Joe. I was up at 2 seconds. We're getting confirmation of that from our director, Ryan Bauer. I think it's a combination of that good pace, and he doesn't have to worry about any attacks coming from behind from Chris Cook. He was just able to focus up the road, and that was enough to be able to start to pull him in a little bit more. And now he's within 7/10 of a second. That's optimal draft range.
Indeed. And you remember before how I was talking about, 3 of our contenders in the top 5. Now they are 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all together here on screen. And Briggs has got to move. Kessel doesn't fight it. That, in fact, looks to me like he intentionally let that one go.
I think we could be seeing a little bit of fuel saving here out of Scott Kessel. He knows that he has been leading this race for a hot minute, wanted to let Briggs on by so he can be a little bit lighter on the throttle. Also, just as a point of fact of how much pace Grotto has been able to have, he just set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:43.58.
Back on board now with the number 6. So we watch those two up ahead. And if you're Logan Grotto and you just saw that happen as well, DJ, do you also maybe try to sit behind Kessel thinking, okay, well, if he's going to play that move, then I might as well try to save as well?
I think that's probably it here at this point, although if Kessel's going to be backing off a little bit, that could give you an opportunity to maybe try to slot yourself up into 2nd if you want to be aggressive. But really and truly, if I was coaching Logan Grotto right now, I would say pull up to the back here of Scott Kessel, just hold on in the tow, wait for the pit stops to play themselves out, then go for it.
All right, back up to the Le Mans chicane once again. Whoa, Logan catches up a ton under braking. Not sure if that was just an early a lift from Kessel or what. Maybe that's just another sign that he is trying to save a bit of fuel, and then gets a great exit compared to Grotto as they come around to pretty much take the halfway point now. So almost exactly 30 minutes left to go in this event, and we've only seen Chris Cook pit in, take his stop, and then Chad Dick as well. Cook fell all the way to 32nd and Dick down to 34th. So, wow, that is pretty much the tail end of the field, actually.
Yeah, it really and truly is here, Joe. The only drivers that we've seen a little bit farther back down are drivers who have taken pit stops. Andrew Elsom, Chad Dick, Mario Gonzalez. That's a very, very hard fall from grace for Chris Cook.
Well, all these drivers are trying to grab that slipstream to go just that little bit faster. If you're struggling to consistently go faster, and if you want to know how to find another 10th off your lap time, join our very own physicist, Nikki Chan, to learn all about driving technique, car setup, telemetry analysis, and more via YouTube videos on last10th.com. Nikki is also available for one-on-one coaching and custom setup sessions. Contact him on Discord for a trial session now so you can squeeze that last 10th off your lap time. Last 10th, better car, better driver. And now David Fernandez is our latest to pit in.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see here right at the halfway point some drivers starting to come in, especially if you're a little bit farther back in the field. Might as well roll the dice, see what happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Briggs, Kessel, and Grotto here, this leading three, absolutely running these fuel tanks dry. I think maybe 15 minutes to go, maybe even longer. That's when we'll see them come in.
And if you're Greg Arado, this has got to be maybe a little disheartening, knowing that he needed to be up towards the top two here, needs to be going for the win, essentially. And for now, he's got an 8-second gap, so he could probably barely see those guys up ahead, and is just kind of cruising around, wishing that he and Facciolo had a little bit better pace. No change here up for the lead. Grotto, well, I spoke too soon. There goes Briggs, and Kessel gets underneath him after he either went too deep or maybe Thomas and himself intentionally gave that up to give fuel a saving to go.
Yeah, could be a little bit of column A, could be a little bit of column B. I know there's been many a time when drivers have just kind of run a little bit wide down into turn one, and when you get out wide, you sort of go, okay, I'm going to change my priorities here. I'm going to get back into that fuel-saving mode. But to your point about Enrico Gregorato, Joe, it looks like here today that he just seems to be a little bit off pace. We're seeing 43.7s, 43.5s out of the leaders in the field here at this point. Gregorato just now turning a 43.98, so pretty much a 44, so it just doesn't look like he's got the pace here today to be able to make anything happen.
I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of, though, because it's been such a great race out of him. And I don't think I didn't think about the battle between himself and Briggs for second, potentially. I'm not sure how that'll go out, but we'll try and get information once we get to the end to see if they have proper calculations behind the scenes on how it wound up, at least unofficially. And Terrence Tong here, still down in 24th. Remember, he was way farther up and started on the front row, but a spin early on is what put him towards the back of the pack. He has not pitted yet, so he still needs to make that happen. And it's not like he's taken an early stop and that's what's got him so far back. He actually has to make all these overtakes from here. In fact, a few of them he's going to lose, since we've seen Chris Cook, Chad Dick, Fernandez, Gonzalez all take pit stops. And we've also seen a retirement from the 516. Balistieri is our latest to fall out of the race.
Yeah, and that was that incident that you talked about, Joe, where he just kind of careened down the pit lane a little bit after making contact with the pit entry barrier. But we check in right now on this battle. This is Gregorato leading over Facciolo right now. Faulkner doing a good job, or Faulkner, falling back a little bit. Robbie Prescott doing a good job to keep the pressure up behind him. We ride on board with that #1 machine right now. And there you can see that gap may look a little bit larger than Robbie maybe would like it to, but the crucial thing is that if he wants to get a run, this is about where you want to be, because you don't want to have to lift off and try to time it a little bit when you're on the loud pedal going around. You want to time it coming out of the corner.
Looks like the 330 and the O2 just took their pit stops. Although, the O2's a little slow. Okay, he's back out now. Yeah, he's about a second slower than some of the others around him. So not the best of pit stops for him. And the leaders were not anticipating them to pit in this time, though, yes, this is a thirsty racetrack. They should be able to still go to at least 20 minutes left on the clock, about 2/3 of the way through this race. Still holding on to that fastest lap right now. It looks like it belongs to Logan Grotto. And wow, color me surprised, Briggs will actually pit in.
I am very surprised about that, Joe. Looks like Gregorado and Faulkner are both going to follow him down. But maybe this track proving to be a little bit thirstier than we anticipated having happen here.
Briggs missed his stall, though.
Oh.
And on top of things, we're hearing reports he may have sped into pit lane. So I'm double checking on that one because he did come in pretty hot. And no, he made it in time. So fantastic stuff. Sometimes when you're at the sharp end of the field, you really got to push the limits of things like that. You got to take that risk of that potential speeding penalty to make up tenths here and there.
Yeah, you have just got to absolutely push for it and go for everything as they go and try to be able to go for it. But yeah, he did not speed. Absolutely incredible.
All right, so this means Kessel leads. Grotto is behind by about half a second. And now we're seeing more and more drivers pitting in. We've got about half the field that have elected to take their stop here with about 24 minutes left on the clock. Do the top two follow, or do they try and stay out just that little bit longer?
I think at this point, you're running in good partnership together. I would try to push and maybe stretch this fuel stint out as long as humanly possible. But let's wait and see what they decide to do, as it looks like here they're going to work their way out around. This is Thomas Briggs coming back in 12th place, so that's going to be the marker. And color me wrong, Grotto and Kessel both coming down into pit lane.
And Grotto was more aggressive into the pit lane. He managed to make an overtake on their way down into it. It effectively becomes a corner of sorts, so he just was more Dan Deere on the binders and now finds himself with that track position into their pit stalls as they now watch themselves get fuel. Briggs is going to try and blast his way past. Oh, it was another driver missing it. Nick Facciolo went a little deep, and he had to back up. That's going to lose him time. Briggs now comes out of NASCAR 4, waiting on Kessel. Did he manage to outrun him when stationary? Not quite, although he was just slightly faster. It does look like Logan Grotto is going to beat him out for track position. This is what's going to be close. They need to stay on the pit limiter all the way to pit exit. And it looks like they are going to beat Briggs out of there.
Briggs took tires, Joe. That was the big decision maker there. Briggs took tires and Grotto and Kessel did not.
Ooh, okay. Now, they are allowed to take tires, but it's just enough, just long enough. That made it 2 seconds longer. Will that give him anything? I'm not sure about this call, DJ. Usually the main theory goes when it's cool at night, the tires aren't going to get eaten up, and, well, Daytona's not known for that in the first place.
That was exactly my thoughts there. And now as we see Briggs about 3.5 seconds behind, he has got it all to do to try to catch himself back up. And I just don't know with the fresh set of boots if he's going to be able to do that. We're also hearing from race control that he got slowed down massively by traffic. So a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B there, all coming back to bite Thomas Briggs.
That's the risk you take when you pit a little bit early. You tried for the undercut, which isn't known to work as well here in sports cars and iRacing, and unfortunately bit him because now he's well out of the slipstream. You can just see him back there behind his rivals as he sees a potential win slipping through his fingers. But Logan Grotto, who has been a phenomenal talent all season long, it's not just the speed he's got, it's the mind, the strategic mind behind it as well, brains and brawn.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what you have to do to be a complete driver here in these sort of longer races that run about an hour. You've got to be thinking about strategy. You've got to be thinking about every little bit of minutia. It's not just the ability to go quick and drive consistently. You also have to have that full strategic knowledge.
All drivers have pitted now, so if they're going to make passes, they're going to have to do it on track. And once again, like we saw a number of times, even though it is a bit of a long-ish track, no drivers have been lapped yet. They do potentially have the ability to lap Richard Franco, maybe Andrew Elsom up ahead of them, but they're both a good distance up the road. That's still an incredibly small amount of drivers who are going to get lapped in this hour race as we jump back to Joachim, who has been in the thick of a lot of battles today.
Yeah, he certainly has, and right in the middle of another one right there, being able to send the move on Chris Witt around the outside of turn one. Absolutely great stuff there from them. But, Joe, I also want to give a little bit of love here to the number 47, Chris Cook. We talked about at the start of the race. He had that terrible, horrible accident coming out of Le Mans. Look where he's running right now. He is back up into P9. That is impressive stuff from the Intermountain Region driver.
Yeah, he's even gotten up into P8 as he's passed Joe Sinclair. And next on his list, unfortunately, Jake Faulkner. I mean, he could have the pace to catch up to him, but that's 6.7 seconds. That's going to be a pretty big gap. And especially if Joe Sinclair wants to have some fun and dice with him, that's going to be pretty tough to try and make time. Speaking of making time, Kessel now gets the slingshot. He'll go past Logan Grotto, and now he'll be in the lead. Thomas Briggs instead behind them gets to gain a little bit of time with this back and forth, unless they actually gain some with that slingshot maneuver. We'll have to see which case it is as the time goes by. But Briggs probably encouraging them to do more side-by-side racing like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he would absolutely love to see a few of those battles starting to play themselves out more and more. But now this is where we start to get into the ultimate strategy, Joe. Where you want to position yourself when the white flag comes out. 9 times out of 10, you want to be in P2. You want to be able to find yourself in second place coming out of the Le Mans chicane and be able to get the best run humanly possible coming out of the corner. And that's where some of these drivers are going to start thinking that move back. And if you're in front right now, well, you're going to want to try to pull ahead as much as possible and prevent that slingshot coming out of the final corners.
Brandon Harrison's in pit lane. Now he should, oh no, he had a wreck. Man, it went from the best day ever to the worst day ever very quickly for the 31. He towed immediately. I'm going to guess that he's done.
Yeah, that looked like a pretty heavy lick there for Brandon Harrison, and he indeed did tow back into pit lane, which means he's going to be stationary for a long time. He is not counted as out of the session yet, but I would not be surprised if he retires here once he sees just how much damage is on the car.
Ben Leung here has been racing back and forth with Dean Chapman. Dean currently ahead of Ben as they come into the Le Mans chicane. And Austin Bucket still kind of hovering in the background to try and decide who is the last driver on the top 10. Going up a little high. Why is Dean Chapman not riding the bottom? That's traditionally where the drivers go here if they're not racing side by side. That's made him a little slow. And now Ben gets a nice pull. He's going to be up around the outside. Let's see if he's able to hold on to it as they come down to the braking for turn one. They got to give space in here between each other, but Ben just doesn't have the grip, and it looks like he's going to relinquish Dean Chapman 10th place. Also, we can confirm that Harrison is out now, so 3 retirements.
I hate to see that there for Brandon. He was having such a stellar day. And yeah, Ben Leung thought a little bit about trying to get the crossover there coming through turns 1 and 2 on Dean Chapman. But Chapman, I think, parked the car at the apex just right, prevented that from happening. And now at this point, it looks like it's flipping around here a little bit as Austin Bucket is now the driver in the catbird seat. He may have a little bit of a run here on Ben Leung before things are said and done.
Yeah, he's been gaining a bit of time here and there, and now he's going to get a nice little tow as long as he's smooth off of turn 6. really trying to get that throttle down, but he goes way up high, and that's going to lose him a lot of time, as Ben Leung was much more tucked down to the bottom of the banking.
Yeah, he really was, and you're right. That is the traditional line around here, just tucking down to that yellow line. Let's take a look at a replay here. This is Joachim Baker. Not entirely sure what happened. Coming down into the International Horseshoe, gets onto the binders. Does he just carry a little bit too much speed into that corner? Yes, he does. A little bit of a half loop. He's able to catch it, bring it back, point it the right way, but that's going to cost him a couple of positions.
No, I feel like this is a place that continues to surprise drivers. You've got basically two hairpins connected with a little kink on that infield, and that sounds and sometimes looks like one of the simplest little rovals, and yet it is so tough to get those two corners right.
Well, it's all about the cambering through these corners, Joe. The first corner in particular here, let's ride on board with Joe Sinclair, and you really get an idea of this. The exit is so much wider than you think it is, and so you're able to get on the throttle a little bit earlier and really bring that car around the outside. We talked a little bit about how the track crowns there in the International Horseshoe. Well, when you come down into the Western Horseshoe, that crowning is even larger, and so here, as you see, you've got to keep that car over to the inside. If you drift out to the outside, you have no grip at all, and you are going to be in big trouble. They are two very tricky corners to get right.
Yes, and coming back onto the oval once again, Cook being chased by Sinclair. Chris has cut it down to less than 6 seconds up to Jake Faulkner. He's not giving up hope. He's continuing to give it a go the best he can. Oh, and did we have another wreck? I think Robert McNeil just had to take a tow himself. Ooh, I think he had a big hit with the inside of turn one on this one. Ooh, yeah, once we see this on the replay, this is a pretty violent little wreck.
All right, so he's going to bring the car down into the braking zone here, carries a good amount of speed, and it looks like they're, ooh, just clipped that corner a little bit too much, and the tire barriers there absolutely grabbing onto the car. And yeah, that is a very violent wreck. We've got a little spin here from Dean Chapman as well, and that looks like some pretty hefty damage coming through Le Mans.
Yeah, another victim of this bus stop style chicane. So here it is. We already saw this once today with Brandon Harrison. I think it's pretty much a carbon copy. Yeah, when it gets loose on entry, ooh, you basically are flying right into that wall.
Yeah, there is no catching it there, and it looks like Chapman's going to come back down into pit lane, get a little bit of repairs done on the car, potentially take that spare car here at this point. But we focus back in on the battle for the lead. Kessel and Grotto still holding on to about 3.6 seconds over Thomas Briggs. That gap really hasn't gone anywhere here at this point. And I got to say, I like what I'm seeing here out of Logan Grotto. He is just watching and waiting.
Yeah, and that, to me, begs the question, I mean, how do you want to set it up? Because sometimes it can backfire about trying to set up that last lap pass. So put yourself in these two shoes. How do you play it, DJ?
If I play it, I want to be in Logan Grotto's shoes. I think it is easier to be able to get the run and get the pass than trying to have to defend the pass, because frankly, the only thing you've got to worry about if you're running second in line is what you do and how you decide to run it. If you're Scott Kessel in this position, you've got to be thinking about where Logan Grotto is going to try to go and how he's going to play it and how you have to be able to defend that line. And here we see Kessel closing in towards the start-finish line and then backing off, closing in and backing off. He is timing that run. He is practicing that run here, Joe.
That's got to make Kessel at least a little bit nervous here. He's got to think about it for another 12 more minutes. So he's got time to dwell on it and try to make the best of it as they carry on for the last race of Series 9. Again, it's been going on since October here, and the drivers have put so much into this winter series as we watch coming through turns 3 and 4, NASCAR 3 and 4, the likes of Adamczyk, Steinbrink, and Dick. And they are going to try and go 3 wide. Will it stay like this down into the corner? Sometimes that can be a little bit treacherous. No, backing off around the outside. Looks like Adamczyk not willing to try and stick with it, but Chad Dick is. He is going to keep the spot ahead of Steinbrink.
And that was great stuff there from Chad. He just held his line and said, no, thank you. I do not want that move. And now up to the inside with a late braking maneuver. That was Jake Steinbrink. That was pretty spectacular.
Not taking no for an answer. That'll put him into 18th spot. Jake, I believe, is our hard charger now. He's up 13 positions. It's been a close one for that title because Dave Stewart is up 12. Jochen Baker's up 11. So is David Glenn. So a lot of drivers have really used the slipstream to just kind of leapfrog their way forward bit by bit. And you got to wonder what could have happened if Brandon Harrison had not run into the trouble that he did.
Yeah, most certainly. It's once again just such a sad day for Brandon Harrison, who is really this sort of pinnacle of being able to work his way up through the field. We take a look back on Kessel and Grotto right now, working their way through. We're just about 10 minutes to go here, which means we're probably going to be just a couple of laps to go at the line. And so I don't think we're going to see any passes here at this point from Grotto. He is not going to want to play his hand too much. He just needs to stay behind in that slipstream.
You know, the other thing, too, is they have had practices as we come back to a battle down across the line here into turn one between Stewart and Sachs. Looks like Sachs is going to get the spot over Stewart, demote him down a position. That'll be for P12. While they have had practice, they have had an actual practice race as well earlier in this week, DJ. These guys are essentially the guinea pigs, and nobody else has done this race in this current setup, this BOP of the Porsche GT3 cars here. So all the others can watch and kind of see, okay, what's effective, what's not, and these guys going to have to learn on the job.
Yeah, very much so, and that's going to be a very, very crucial thing. I think we're going to see some pretty fascinating racing. Oh, as Robbie Prescott thought about a move there going down into Le Mans. I think we're going to see a lot of lessons learned here from this race in particular and applied going forward into the pro class tomorrow night.
No doubt. See the sparks there. I love that aspect of night racing on iRacing as they have the metal sides of the cars just bouncing off the track. They actually kick up sparks just like they do in real life, and it glows and scatters and just looks spectacular. But Prescott wants to make a spectacular pass for fifth here around Facciolo. He's going to have to do it the hard way. So can he manage to finish it up? No, you're way off in the marbles, my friends. That's not going to make it stick.
Not going to make it stick, but crucially there for Prescott, he's not going to lose the draft range. He's going to stay within 0.5 of a second, so a top five still potential here. Once again, I would have cautioned against doing that. I would have waited a little bit, but I think here for Robbie Prescott, he doesn't just have eyes on Nick Facciolo. He wants P4 away from Enrico Gregorato, or at least he did before that mistake.
Absolutely. Now, what has been going on with Cook and his trying to catch back up to Faulkner? He's just about at 5 seconds, so he's cut off another half second. So he's still gaining in little bit by bit there. And as they approach through turn 6, Facciolo can see Gregorato just achingly close. Ooh, once again, one car going a little way up high there with Prescott trying to carry some speed onto the banking of NASCAR 1 and 2. Up to the backstretch, he'll tow it right back in, but he's way too far back for a move this time.
Yeah, way too far back. I think we've had an issue a little bit farther back in the field. I'm seeing Dave Stewart off and into the grass, as well as I believe that's Austin Bucket.
It is indeed. So, and that's out of the Western Horseshoe. Oh, Bucket looks like he's too damaged. He thought he could drive the car away, but he has to park it on the exit of 6 and take a tow. So this must have been a pretty good contact between the pair of them. At least I'm assuming there was some form of contact here. What have we got? Oh, out into the grass, tries to collect it. Yeah, right into the corner. And that pretty much just kills it.
Yeah, and what happened there, Bucket just got onto the loud pedal a little bit too early, picked up some understeer that pushed him farther off the track, and he just tried to gas it up, going around through the grass, and that's enough to spin those rear tires and put you into trouble.
Okay, well, sad to see two drivers very much in the hunt for a good finish in the midfield find themselves having to give it up a little bit. Oh, and what have we got coming into the trioval. Joachim Baker versus Chip Witt. That's Joachim to the outside. And as they come into the braking, the 330 will move into P13. To make matters worse for Bucket, he has been given a black flag from that incident.
I can't say I'm entirely surprised there, Joe. That was 100% on him there for that. It looks like we've got a nice little battle here starting to shape itself up a little bit farther back in the field right now as we ride on board with Terrence Tong, who makes a very, very quick move.
And somebody's spinning off in the background. That was Lee Binkley. Terrence has probably got the red mist a little bit here. Remember, he's trying to still come back, and he's only up to 19th. It's not that huge of a field here today, and I'm a bit surprised that this is as high as he's been able to go.
Joe, we've got multiple drivers going off here. Jake Faulkner just lost it coming through turn 6 and 7. Looks like concentration's starting to ebb here in the final stages of this race.
Which means Chris Cook now gets that 7th place that he'd been trying to hunt down. So that's nicely done by him. In the meantime, we've been seeing Grotto chasing Kessel on our screens. So here's Faulkner. That's the distance back to Cook behind him, to give you an idea of how much time he lost. And, ooh, did he avoid the tires? Wow. It is rare that you can lose it on the way into Le Mans and not hit anything.
Yeah, that was very, very impressive. A full 4-wheel drift there and still able to hold on to it. That is some impressive off-roading there from him.
Yeah, it definitely is starting to feel like a lot of drivers are just making some critical errors here at the end of this race. And down into the front stretch, we've hopped on board with Chip Witt through turn 1 as he chases on Fernandez. Joachim Baker, who we were talking about battling with them earlier, is pulling away slightly. Would certainly like them to start fighting with each other even more.
Yeah, I think he would love that, but we'll have to see if they decide to play nice here and try to push their ways up ahead, or if they're content to let this kind of scrap develop out. Only under 4 minutes remaining here, Joe, and as our leaders work their way through NASCAR 3 and 4 right now, we haven't to do the math, but I think we're 2 to go at the line.
It'll be close. It should be 3 to go unless they're 3:28 or shorter. Ooh, it's going to be very, very close. They're down to 3:35, 3:34. It is 3 to go. Wow. They're going to get through with about 4 seconds to spare.
All right, and that is going to be crucial when we talk about those infinitesimal gaps down farther in the timing like that. Remember, fuel has been a big storyline here today. Maybe there are some drivers that underfueled the car a little bit, not expecting this next lap.
And Kessel communicating with some of the lap traffic, asking to be given way. Franco going to do so. We are now up to 4 drivers that have been lapped, although Dave Stewart, I'm not sure if he'll make it back out on track. He's been taking repairs, so we'll see if he can to just take the last 2 laps here in a bit. Kessel needs at this point to just distance himself from Grotto anywhere he can. Break that slipstream just enough. Maybe get about, 1.2 seconds? Is that the distance that Logan won't be close enough to really make a run of it?
Yeah, about 1.2 seconds is the area where the draft range really starts to fall off. But unfortunately here, Grotto has just been able to keep in within about 0.5 of a second, lap after lap after lap. Let's see how close he's able to get here. Coming down into Le Mans, good lines there for both drivers as they exit the corner. And look how much Grotto was able to close up. He gets almost 0.2 of a second there working through the corner. And now I guarantee if we ride on board with him, he's going to get a great run here to the line. May lift off a little bit, though, and not play his hands too early.
Oh, and if it is close on time, he's got to watch that, too, and really be aware, because he might think, like you thought, that this is the last lap right here. And, yeah, they've got 1:48 left, so they're going to come around another time to take the white flag the next time. So he can't do it too early.
No, he can't, and he's really got to be careful of that. But yeah, as you heard there on board, a big lift there out of Grotto. He's in the catbird seat. He's got to time this right, but he's got 2 laps to try to do it. And again, I don't think we're going to see it here on this lap. You want to save that move coming out of Le Mans for the last possible moment.
All this is happening roughly 3 seconds ahead of Thomas Briggs. If something does hold them up for some reason, either some lap traffic or Logan manages to get side by side with Kessel, they could still be caught, and maybe it'll be a 3-car run to the line in the end, because they're going to have a whole nother lap and a half here for something to happen. Never say never. We've seen some wilder things in Series 9 up till now. Grotto's still within those 0.6 of a second so far. Looking to check it on that biggest mover. Jochen Baker actually is now, who's up 14 positions and into P13.
I actually think, Joe, it's Jake Steinbrink down in 16, who's up 15 on the day. So we've had some big movers and shakers through the field. Oh, a little bit of a problem here. We've got a stopped car out on track. That's Robert McNeil on the banking. There you see both of your leaders having to avoid him.
And here we come to the line. Again, by the calculations, it should be, and I don't think Scott's going to be willing to try and lift to end it early, because he could see Grotto take the lead away from him. And there we go. White flag is out. 1 more lap to go.
Now, the big question here outside of Grotto, and if he's going to be able to get the run, did anybody call this wrong? Did anybody miscalculate their fuel? And are we going to see anybody having to coast to the line here? These are the big questions in this last 3.5 miles.
Yes, indeed. And we've lost Robert McNeil now. He is retired from this race. Stewart is still in pit lane. He could pull out if he thinks that he's going to get the repairs done. My banking is that the number 914 is now out of it. So let's see. This is where things now get interesting. Grotto is actually losing a bit. He's up to 1.1 seconds behind. That's right on the cusp. Is Kessel turning up the wick, or is Grotto, like you said, short on fuel?
Could be one of the two. It could also just be a bad run there. We're getting reports. I think Grotto may be short on fuel. He may have miscalculated this.
Oh, no. It was looking like such a clinical drive, and now it's going away on him. Just can't keep up with Scott Kessel in the end with the fuel strategy. It's not over yet, though. Kessel could also run out of fuel, and then we could see the two of them have to try and drift it to the line, or Briggs potentially could steal it away as we ride on board with Scott Kessel. Looking back, it continues to extend 1.4 seconds apart now as they come around NASCAR 3 and 4. Scott Kessel has played it to perfection from third to the win here today to take the final race of Series 9 in the PCA Sim Racing Series.
Grotto looks like he's going to be able to cross over in second, just limping across the line. I think he started to sputter about 0.5 second after he crossed.
Briggs will finish third, and Greg Grotto fourth. There's your 3 championship contenders, but unofficially, Logan Grotto is your champion for Series 9 as Faulkner side by side across the track there to try and decide 7th place, and Faulkner comes away the winner.
Looks like we've had a driver retire here. Jason Brodigan, I think, called the fuel wrong. He's back down in pit lane as we now take a look here at Chip Witt, who's going to be working his way around to try to come home in 14th.
I'm keeping an eye on Terrence Tong as well to see how many he can take, as Adam Schick might try and snipe that spot right at the end. Tong gaining on Chad Dick as well. They're going to fan out 3 wide potentially, but none of them change positions. So Dick, Tong, Adam Schick, 16th, 17th, 18th, as we will have about 29 cars on the lead lap, if I'm seeing correctly. Now back to Douglas chasing on Trip Starkey and Volker Krebs.
All right, this could be a good run here for Kevin Douglas, but I think Trip Starkey's going to have the advantage here because he's also going to be picking up a little bit of the tow. You see the sort of buffeting back and forth as they come down into the line. No changes there for those drivers.
And that makes up the last battle that we have to the finish of this race, as you see Elsom come across last on the lead lap. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so don't go away. if that's going to be the case. He's actually got a nose ahead as they come down into the braking zone. He's going to do it the hard way. Welcome back to Daytona. With that, the club class is done for Series 9. Scott Kessel takes the last win, but it is Logan Grotto who unofficially is your new champion. Thomas Briggs is going to finish third and just kind of stumbled a bit there at the end of the season. Not sure if he was able to catch up to Greg Grotto and retake that second place, but we'll check on the points when we can. Greg Grotto wound up fourth. Facciolo, P5 for him, was flanked by Robbie Prescott in sixth as Jake Faulkner raced to seventh, and Chris Cook, who started on the pole, had a bit of a wreck in the middle of the race, took his spare car, came back out, finished eighth in the end. Joe Sinclair was ninth, and Ben Leung rounds out your top 10 as we'll cycle through the rest of your field here. But it does sound like we've got Scott Kessel ready to talk to us. I'd love to hear what his thoughts were coming up to that last lap, because I'm sure that was a bit nerve-wracking, not knowing whether or not Logan was going to be able to try and snipe him to the finish. Scott, were you aware that Logan was going to back off at the end, possibly for fuel? We're not sure if that was the situation or if it was something else, but regardless, I mean, what was your mindset as he was just hovering behind you all the way up until that last lap?
So Logan and I are both part of the marginally above average sim race. I forgot the word. We always forget how to say it when we get interviewed. We're on a team, so he was working with me, and he pretty much said, I need to win the championship. So he backed off and I just led the way, and it was awesome.
So it was something completely different that we hadn't even considered. And by our calculations, of course, pretty simple on this one, that unofficially he is champion. So that was there any sort of agreement there that, you know, if he's going to get the championship, he doesn't need the win, he's going to let you take that? Or was that just something kind of spur of the moment?
We had talked about it a little bit. It was kind of if this happens, and it seemed like such a distance thing, because this whole season I've gone to top 10 and then I like crash out or something. My best other finish is sixth and then ninth, and then the rest have been like 30 in the back. But I practiced 25 hours of this track in the past week and a half, and I really wanted this.
It shows, and that is real dedication there. I'm sure it'll come in handy if you take part in the Daytona 24 a little bit later on here in January. So, I mean, good way to finish off Series 9 then, even though the points didn't quite go your way. Do you feel like you can carry this momentum off to Series 10?
I sure hope so. That was a ton of fun.
Well, again,
and I want to thank my spotter, Leif Peterson. It's actually his birthday today, and
happy birthday to Leaf then. Okay, congratulations, Scott. Go celebrate both things tonight.
Thank you.
Scott Kessel, your winner here today at Daytona for the club class, as DJ has caught up with second place Logan Grotto and newly crowned champion.
I have indeed. Let's start with the good stuff here. Logan, you are unofficially the champion here in Series 9. That's got to feel spectacular.
Oh, it feels fantastic, DJ. This just feels amazing.
Well, we just talked to your teammate there, Scott Kessel, and it sounds like you guys had a little bit of an agreement coming to the line there. Were you short on fuel, though? Because I thought I heard you sputter a little bit as you came across the line.
I was sipping there at the end. You saw I got out of the pits before him. I took less fuel. But, man, he was just so fast at the infield. I knew that I wasn't able to keep up with him. He was just going to pressure me, and so I let him by and tried to stick with him. But I just couldn't take it.
Well, I've got to ask you, as we look ahead now to Season 10, or Series 10, rather, obviously a little promotion going to be in store for you. What are your goals coming in for next season?
I would love to have some top 10 finishes. I'm, just looking forward to being there.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you up there, Logan. But as for today, as for this series, once again, you are the champion. Who makes this possible?
You guys at Podium, our sponsors, Six Sigma, Last Tenth, Pirelli, and, really my fiance. She's just so supportive of me through this, and my teammates, the marginally above average sim racers.
Well, thank you, Logan, and congratulations from all of us up here in the booth.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, that was Logan Grotto, your second place finisher and champion here in Series 9. And now I believe you've been able to catch up with third place today, Thomas Briggs.
Indeed, and Thomas, it was probably a little frustrating there at the end to not be close enough to try and vie for that win. But I guess finishing on a podium, I mean, what does that leave you feeling at the end of Series 9?
At the end of the day, I'm still pretty happy with my result because I know I gave everything I could. There was a bit of damage on the car in the end after my 0x with Grotto. And then there's just some other things like fueling the car and missing the pit stop, but I'm still happy with the job I did.
Yeah, and I can imagine those are things that you'll be looking back on and trying to perfect when we head off to Series 10. But let's talk about this race in particular, because it seemed like that you were still pretty quick, and you had to have known coming into this that it needed practically a pole and a win to make happen. So were you trying for that? Were you shooting for the moon to maybe somehow snipe the championship, or did you put it out of your head when you came in?
Less the championship. Of course, the title was so far away, but I'm never going to make it easy for Logan. But I was more focusing on second place. And then when the opportunity just kind of arose to go for the win, I was going to take it. Luckily, me and Scott, we just worked together really well as teammates, and it went really well.
In more somber news, we did obviously notice your paint scheme pretty quickly. What did Ken Block mean to you? And tell us a little about what you put together here.
Well, I remember I first found out who he was when I was in second grade. I would play like the little Need for Speed game, and I'd always use his car and watch his videos. And when I heard that he had passed, it was really sad. So I just thought I had to commemorate him in some way.
I can completely understand a lot of those influences on us when we were younger, just getting us into racing. And Thomas, again, well done this Series 9. I think you did a fantastic job, and this was a great podium today. Go celebrate and enjoy the off season.
Thank you.
Thomas Briggs, third place out there. I think he did wind up third in points. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to try and get some information, and hopefully social media will be able to fill everybody in on that a little bit later. In the meantime, we do want to say join us tomorrow night at 9:25 p.m. Eastern for the Pro Class finale. And we'd like to thank the PCA Sim Racing title sponsors for Series 9. Pirelli, of course, who's been with us all series, and Six Sigma Sim Racing, as well as a huge thank you to LastTenth.com. Better car, better driver. Big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, and a huge thanks to our team tonight, DJ, Ryan, Cameron, and Dougie. Also, none of this is possible without those behind the scenes at Podium Esports, Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak, and I'll see you on the track.